Hello, welcome back to the channel. My name is Lisa Elvin Stoltari, and I'm a genealogist and a passionate traveler. Over the last few years, I've been featuring each Fiji or King's daughter and getting to know their stories a little bit better. There are over 700 of them. We are on number 186. So we've come a long way, but we've got a long way to go. Before we get to know our Fille du Roi of this episode, let me show you some ways you can support the channel. The first three keep you in the know. Subscribe, like, and notify. All of this helps that logarithm of YouTube. The other couple of ways are ways that you can help the channel grow and support the channel financially. We have Coffee, which is one platform. We have Patreon. And we also have the super thanks that YouTube has permitted me to do since I'm over 1,000 subscribers now. Thank you very much. So there's all different ways that you can show your support. I'm very grateful to all of you. So let's get started and get to know our Fille du Roi of this episode. So this episode, 186, we are featuring Marie Renaud. Let's get to know Marie Renaud and who is she? And this was a viewer request, and when I looked in my files, sure enough, my best friend, that was one of her great grandmothers, and also one of my genealogy colleagues who assisted me in a library project. This is also her great grandmother, and one of my best friends from my teenage years. This is also her great grandmother. So with that being said, let's get to know Marie a little bit better. So Marie was born in 1637 in Orléans, France. And her parents were Jean Renaud and Catherine Gauthier. Let's talk a little bit about Orléans. It is actually part of the Centre Val de Loire region. And inside of that region, we have the département, which is for our North American ears, is like a county. And it's in the département of Loire. And of course, it is the largest city there. It has a population of about close to 300,000, and the larger metropolitan has almost 500,000. So it is definitely a very large city in France today, and it always has been extremely important to France. It really owes its history on many levels to the river that flows through it, which is the River Loire, and it was an important river trading point, and it was also important in terms of the merchants and getting their goods. It played an important role in the Hundred Years' War, and again is also known for its Joan of Arc, who was known as the Maid of Orléans. And so every May, the first week of May, since 1432, the city pays homage to the Maid of Orleans during some holidays that they celebrate. And one of Europe's oldest universities was created in 1306 by Pope Clement V and refounded in 1966 as the University of Orleans. So it is a huge thing. Now, the French Canada, obviously, Ile d'Orléans in Quebec is named after Orléans, as well as some little town called New Orleans in Louisiana. We also have a very small community near Ottawa called Orléans. And so the church that she would have been baptized in dates from that about the 6th century, and it was rebuilt in the 10th and 12th. I mean, it's just overwhelming, the history of this place. It was destroyed in the siege of Orléans in 1428 and the Huguenots uprising in 1567. It was rebuilt every time. By 1888, it was completely rebuilt to the building that we see here today. The picture on the left is actually of Joan of Arc, a statue in her honor. And of course, the bottom picture is Orléans, kind of a picturesque scene by the river. Just beautiful, beautiful. Actually, one on my bucket list to go to. So after her father's death, she left for Canada. She was 31, which is, significantly older than the other filles du roi. That's not to say that there weren't lots of them in the 30s, but generally speaking, they were either between 18 and 24. That was the primary age. She arrived on La Nouvelle-France on July 3rd, 1668. Who did she select, and who selected her? So the groom that she selected, his name was François Leroux de Cardinal. He was born about 1635 in the small village of Saint-Denis-Saint-Sauveur, that is now known as. His parents were Jean Leroux and Jeanne Leblanc. Now, the Église Saint-André, I just want to show you this church. It was built in the 12th century and it was completely rebuilt in the 19th. And so it definitely has stood the test of time. And it was merged with Saint-Sauveur in 2016. So very, very small place. And the French have a way of actually just kind of merging and merging. So it looks like they have about 1,700 people. So I suspect it was even smaller before. And so they joined in 2016. You can see where it is. It's in the Nouvelle-Aquitaine region, and inside that region, the Département of Vienne. So, and then the bottom picture is a beautiful kind of aerial view of the small village. So this is where François came from. So François would enlist about 1658 at La Rochelle. By the time he and Marie would marry, he had established himself and he was ready for a family. You can see him here in the 1666 census, listed as a worker, an engagé probably. And so his time, whatever time he would have spent, he really had the ability to build kind of a nest egg for he and Marie. So about 10 years and for Francois and 3 months for Marie, they were married on October 25th, 1668 in Quebec City. That is their marriage record. Let's start off at Beauport. A little history of Beauport. In 1634, Robert Giffard received the Seigneurie of Beauport from the Compagnie des Cent Associés. This is the company of 100 associates, so he was right there at the very beginning. By 1698, about 400 French colonists had settled just east of Rivière-Beauport and had begun truly making it into a small city. You can see it on the map there. It's just above Quebec City. It looks like it's very far away, but it isn't. And that is just one of the many maps by 1663 of who was, settling there. So eventually the family would settle at Charlebourg. Charlebourg is now a borough of Quebec City. It was at one time its own separate city. And it's actually west of Beauport, so it's not really that far from where they originally settled. The origins of Charlebourg began with the concession of the Seigneurie of Notre-Dame-des-Anges in 1626. This was given to the Jesuits. By 1665, the new intendant of justice, Jean Talon, set out to establish 3 new villages further north on the plateau. So you can imagine that the Jesuits were not very impressed with this whole thing. So it was pretty laden with conflict. It was interesting. I want you to look at the picture on your, the upper left. We see Bourg-Royal, Charlebourg, and Petit-Auvergne. These are the small little, pieces of land that they built. And they built them in a spoke-like, wheel-like version. It's almost like a star. And the square in the middle would have represented the church for each, the small church that would have been in each of the small villages. And the idea was to consolidate the church's strength, and then the church would, and then the habitants, the people living there, would have been facing the church. Their land would have extended onto there. So very interesting. It's never been done. I think there's one place in Alberta where they have this kind of setup, but nowhere else that I have seen. And so you can even see in the 1960s, they took an aerial view. It's exactly laid out, just like the older map. You can see Charlebourg on the map on the bottom right. It is just up north of Quebec City. And then we have the church that now exists there, Saint-Charles de Borromée, and obviously was not there in their time. But the small church that was established there would have, this is based on a picture taken in 1696. And so it is definitely a very historical part of Quebec City, one that I plan on visiting. In 1681, they took a census, and there they were: François Leroux, Marie Renaud. They're both 44. Their children are Antoinette, Ignace, Geneviève, François. They have one gun, 2 cows, and 8 enfants valaires. So about 5 to 6 acres of land that they control. So all in all, they would have 5 children. First came Antoinette, who married Louis Jacques and had 6 children, all of whom made it. Next would come Ignace, who married Anne Bourret and had 13 children, 9 of whom would make it. Geneviève married Louis Paquet and had 3 children, all of whom would make it. Marianne would marry François-Louis Lamotte and had 4 children, all of whom would make it. Jeanne, their last child, would die in infancy. François would pass away on October 20th, 1691, at the Hôtel Dieu du Québec, where he had been for about 3 months. So we do not have a record of his death, but we know that he was about 56 years old. He and Marie would have been married 23 years at that time. Marie would go on to live another decade, almost 2 decades. She would die in 1709, and she is buried at at Charlebourg, and is would have been 72 years old. Really remarkable for that age and that era. She and François would leave 112 descendants in all. And we have some resources I love to talk about. La Société d'Histoire des Filles du Roi, the Facebook Society, Filles du Roi. All of these are excellent resources. We have the Wiki Tree. Many of you are familiar with it. Please have a look at that. There are specific groups for les Filles du Roi. We have Généalogie du Québec et des Mairies Françaises. We have the Quebec Genealogical Society and Généalogie Québec. And of course, La Société des Filles du Roi, the Society of the King's Daughters. I am a member and the membership chairperson, and obviously this is a very good website to go on to get information, and the journal is available to members. They publish a journal twice a year filled with incredible articles and research that's done on this subject. So have a look at those resources. So ends episode 186. Marie Renaud was a lady who came to Canada much later than most, was able to marry and produce children and leave a legacy. She also was able to withstand all the hardships that she would have had to endure, particularly losing François at the age of 56 that he was when he died, and carrying on by herself for the last almost 2 decades of her life. So they are a testimony to perseverance and just basically making those kind of sacrifices that were so necessary, and that is why we are honoring them. We thank their memory, we bless their sacrifice, and we are so grateful that they came to New France. And with that being said, I also want to say thank you to my patrons and supporters. I have finally managed to find a format that works for me in order to honor all of these amazing people that have been supporting the channel. And as the channel grows, this list will grow. And I thank you so much for my early supporters. You really have made a difference in my life and in this channel. So with that, I bid you adieu and au revoir until I see you on episode 187 of Les Filles du Roi.